Welcome to Living from the Soul. This is your host, Sam Torode. Today I'm excited to be speaking with Lisa'Anne Ivey. Lisa'Anne is an artist of many talents. She's a poet, an actress, she sings, and she has a great Instagram account. I'd say she's an Instagram influencer, not for selling products, but for sending out messages of inspiration and positivity. Hey, Lisa'Anne.
Yes,
We got connected way back in 2011 when you sent me an email about my book, The Dirty Parts of the Bible. Thanks for that.
yes, yes.
And then,
A whole decade later now.
then when I joined Instagram just, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, somehow you popped up as a recommended account to follow. I guess they've searched my email history and knew that.
Yes, that happens.
But following you on Instagram, I love the kind of messages and poems and images you put out.
Thank you, thank you. I'm trying to find my voice on social media and try to mix it with my I guess my life's philosophy and also incorporate my creativity. So I'm very much in the beginning stages of all of that. But yeah, no, thank you for the follow and the support.
Yeah, I'd say you're doing a great job actually communicating a consistent message.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I try. I This is a new thing for me, not to be the lighthouse, but to kind of call myself Lisa the Lighthouse now. Something I kind of realized within the past year that it's needed, that kind of light in these dark and crazy times, which is kind of hard to navigate because I never know how do you navigate and bring light without seeming too like fluffy or not realistic. Like how do you do that? And
Mhm.
I guess it just came to me about 2 weeks ago. I was writing a blog and I just realized, I was like, wait, lighthouses use the darkness. And so now that's been my thing. So it looks like that'll be my journey for 2021, to kind of use the darkness like how
Hmm.
lighthouses do.
Wow, that's a profound thought. Well, we've certainly had a very dark week with a coup attempt and just all kinds of turmoil in the news.
Yes.
And you posted something about balance and finding balance. Could you comment some on that?
Yes, I think as humans, a lot of the times we focus or give our energies a lot more to the negative aspects of things. And people always ask, like, Lisa, you're always so positive and you're always so happy. Is it that you're ignoring what's happening? And that's never the case. The case is I do strive, though, to make sure I balance. So for anything negative that is happening, I have to find a way. Just as I give my time to the negativity and to watch news and to keep updated, I then must find ways to channel an opposing energy to that, to just find some balance rather than get sucked into or get buried under just one particular energy. And I think that that's important. I think we forget that a lot of the times, and we kind of just dive in and just like, it's my right and I have to keep updated, and you should, but then it's your responsibility then to yourself to make sure that you balance it.
Mhm. For me, I only put out positive messages on Facebook, but then on Twitter, I put mostly rants against politicians. So is that balanced to have a positive Facebook and a negative Twitter?
That definitely sounds like balance to me. And I think even it's not even negative. Like if you're posting about what's actually happening, I don't even think that that's negative. You're just talking about what is happening. But yes, it does sound like you've struck some balance with a little bit of the lighter side on Instagram, and then you just go in on Twitter, which I feel is what Twitter is for anyway.
Yeah.
I'm fairly new to Twitter, or rather new to Twitter again. So that's definitely one that I'm navigating too. And I find that my light or my positivity is much more received on Instagram. And it's kind of like overlooked on Twitter. It's like, nobody nobody's trying to hear like snippets of lights on Twitter. We want like what's happening, so.
Right. I've just been learning there is a small community of spiritual Twitter accounts and people who share positive messages, but that's definitely the minority.
It is. And you know what? But as I tell this to people all the time, your social media is what you make it. And so if nobody's grabbing on to say the positivity that you're posting, it just means you haven't found your tribe. You're not following your tribe. I'm sure there are thousands of like healing, spiritual, positive Twitter accounts that if it is that I followed them and they followed me back, then I'd be getting a little bit more love for those kinds of posts. So your social media is definitely what you make it. I think with who I follow on Instagram, I tend to receive a little bit more love for the positivity there, and I'm not so active on Twitter anyways.
Yeah, that's probably for the best. I think Instagram is more suited for you.
Yes, but I'm gonna like infect every single dark corner that I can. So if Twitter needs it, then I'm gonna have to be the lighthouse for Twitter.
Oh, that's great. That's great. How did you build your audience on Instagram? How long have you been on there? And
Oh, wow. I think I've been on Instagram for somewhere between 8 to 10 years, but not like actively trying to build any kind of community. It's more of a tool for me to keep in touch since I'm so far away. Like I live in California, but I'm originally from Jamaica. And all my family is either in Jamaica or just on the East Coast in the US. And so I'm not so much of a talk on the phone kind of person. So if I don't find ways to check in with mass groups of people in one way, then I kind of lose touch. So Instagram really was my way of one, documenting my very new journey because I had switched career paths. So to kind of document that, but then to also make sure that I am keeping in touch with people.
what was your childhood like in Jamaica, and how did you end up here?
Oh my gosh, I had the best childhood in Jamaica. It is exactly how you would expect an island childhood to be, just real like simple things, lots of sunshine. Jamaican people tend to be very positive people, very culture oriented people too. So just a very rich experience. And I did the performing arts growing up in Jamaica too. I was a proud member of a group called the Ashe Caribbean Performing Arts Academy and Ensemble. So I would get to go around Jamaica displaying our culture through singing, dancing, and acting. And I also even toured the US a couple times. And I did this amazing tour of France and Spain, 2 months right before my 16th birthday, just immersed in my culture and immersed in sharing my culture. So that was definitely just a dream childhood.
Wow.
And then I moved to the US about 10 years ago, I think 2010. I was in med school at the time when I moved. And yeah, I switched. I just had an experience, like an epiphany, like Lisa, you get one life to live. Go after what it is that you've kind of always wanted to do. And so I switched to the creative career, and now I'm in California hustling it out.
Wow. You mentioned some kind of brush with mortality that helped inspire you to switch career paths. What was that?
Yes. So in 2000 and I'm not even going to try to do dates because I can't remember dates. But yeah, it's around 2010. I think shortly before it is that I even reached out to you, because that was the start of a journey for me in going back to my creativity and kind of doing fun things like reading for pleasure, not just reading for school, which is what you do when you're in med school. So I had found a lump in my left breast, and it just would not go away. And that was my brush with my mortality, because up until that point in time, there was nothing health-wise that came to mind to kind of like shake me. But that had happened. And so I went through that period of time. I was 2 years into med school. And it just kind of shook me when I realized, oh my gosh, I have one life to live. I feel like I'm living it for everybody else. And it could just be gone just like that. And I wouldn't have made the mark that I wanted to make, or yeah, it just got me thinking, what are the things that I would regret not doing if it is that my life were to end right now? And I realized I wouldn't have regretted not becoming a doctor. I would have more regretted not following the creative path of my life. Now, the doctor in me still wants to heal people, and I think that's where the vlogs and the posts that you mentioned come into play, because that's healing nature is still very much there. But I just realized I would regret not channeling the healing, or living out my purpose in healing. I would regret not doing that in a creative way, as opposed to the medical field way.
Yeah. How deep into your medical studies were you? Is this at the beginning or?
No, so I had always been on that path, even though I did performing arts always on the side. My school career was always geared towards going to med school. I had decided from a very young age I was going to be a doctor, which is definitely a point of pride for Caribbean parents. You know, there's that you can be three things: lawyer, doctor, or Indian chief. I don't know where that saying came from. But by the time you get old enough, you realize, well, I can't be an Indian chief, so it's lawyer or doctor. And so I chose the doctor. And I got a full tuition scholarship to go to a university in Canada, and I did a double major in biology and psychology, which was a switch. I got the scholarship to do bio and chem, which is what you normally do if you're on the med school path. But after my first year, I fell in love with psychology and the way the human brain works. And so I changed my major to bio and psych. And so I did the 4-year degree in that. And then I went to med school, and I was 2 years into a 4-year MD program when I made the switch.
Wow.
So definitely not at the beginning of it. I had definitely done a lot of years in it already.
That's quite a strong foundation to have biology and psychology. But certainly, I'm sure that's equipped you for what you're doing today and going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. I think even though I've kind of switched, I see where the dots definitely still do connect. I don't regret any step. I don't feel like I wasted time in med school. I don't feel like I wasted any time at all. I just feel I was connecting the dots in a different way.
What was the reaction from your family?
I feel like you already know the answer to that if you're asking that question. It definitely was tough for my parents. That definitely involved a lot of hard conversations that we had never had the need to have up until that point. I feel like I was a good child, or the perfect child, if that makes sense, up until that point where the things that I was pursuing was very much in line with all the dreams that they could have had for me. So the switch was definitely difficult for them. Thankfully for me, the switch was done at a time where I was old enough. I made the switch at probably 28, 29, thereabouts. So I was old enough to, hold my own and not require any help or permission for the switch. But it definitely did. I think it kind of broke my parents' heart in a way. But I think more than anything else, when I look back at it, I think it was just fear. I think it was fear and them not wanting their daughter to experience any kind of like the hard life that comes with a creative living, or the rejection that comes with auditioning, not getting the roles, etc. So I think that was a huge part of it, even if that wasn't what seemed to be at the forefront of the conversation. The conversation was like, what are you doing? What's going on? But I think that it was more motivated by fear. My sisters were very supportive, though. So, I had the balance.
Nice. I know my dad was worried about me when I majored in art and English in college.
Yeah.
He wanted me to pick business or something practical.
Yes.
And he has said a few times since then that he's pleasantly surprised that I've been able to make it and support myself in the arts.
Yes. No, that's definitely just proof you've kind of got to live your life like for yourself in a way and answer your particular calling.
Yeah. Have you come across the book Dying to Be Me by Anita Moorjani?
No, I have not. I'm going to make a note now, though, because that definitely sounds like something right up my alley.
Absolutely. Her story has a lot of similarities to yours and with your health scare. She had a terminal cancer and has a miraculous
Oh, wow.
miraculous recovery and a near-death experience. And the meaning she got out of it all was to live her life without fear and stop trying to live up to others' expectations.
Exactly. Yes, we get our. I absolutely love that, and even the name I love. I always tell people, I go, "You're not sick of being yourself. What you're sick of is not being your true self." So there is that feeling of like I'm just dying to be my true self. So I like that. I will definitely check that book out.
Excellent. When you moved did you move straight to Los Angeles then from Canada?
No, so from Canada, I went back home to Jamaica, worked and saved a lot to start med school. I went to an offshore US med school on this island called St. Eustatius. And then I switched to a med school program in St. Kitts, but they were offshore US schools. So I had that in between. And then I went to New York, and that's how I was preparing to do the board exams and everything like that to switch over to do my next 2 years, the last 2 years in the clinical portion of it. And it was during that time in New York when I had that experience, that brush with my mortality, and just, thinking like, what's next? I guess it's probably like the pre-30, not like midlife crisis, but like that pre-30, like, what are you really doing? And then I moved to LA.
I think they call that the quarter life crisis now.
Quarter life. I like that. That's exactly what it is. Quarter life crisis. I definitely wouldn't say half, like midlife at 28. So knock on everything.
Well, you do acting, singing, dancing. When you moved to LA, what was your intent to focus on?
Oh, great question. I love that because my intent when I moved to LA, the only thing that I could think of really doing was acting. So that was the first thing. And I had Felicia Rashad in my mind as like, this is the career that I want. I want to be a TV mom. I want to be somebody wholesome. I want to bring a lot of love and light to people through my creativity. So when I moved, that's all that was on my mind. However, I had started entertaining other energies that would kind of dictate now what my path looked like. I didn't know that I could write poetry the way I wrote poetry because I had never set aside time to do it, right? And then I started reading. That's how I came across your book, The Dirty Parts of the Bible. I think you were one of the first books that I had read for just reading's sake, not reading because I had to read it for school.
Wow.
So it was one of those where it just opened my eyes and I was like, oh my gosh, reading is so much fun. And
Wow.
so I started reading more and then started writing more. So now my career, as much as at first I was just like, I want to act, now my dedication is just mostly to being authentic with whatever my creative expressions are at that time. Not so much just acting. As much as I do love acting, I'm currently writing my first feature film script. I've written a bunch of poetry. I started blogging and doing things like that, which I just didn't know I had in me until you go on the journey. you
Well,
know?
you seem like a natural writer, so that's surprising that you found it later in life.
Thank you so very much. I do feel like writing definitely does have a special place in my heart and definitely filled me up way more than I thought. So, yeah, thank you very much.
And I'm really honored that my book was one of the first that set you on this new path. That's exciting to hear.
Yes, and it was so random. It's not like I didn't know anything about you before. I don't even know how the book got suggested to me. It was just suggested, and I was like, all right, let me do it. And I enjoyed it so much. I just remember feeling so full after reading it that I realized, yes, oh my gosh, like fiction too, it's not just like nonfiction. Fiction too can fill you up in like real life ways, and I can laugh with a book and I can cry with a book and have like true emotions with characters and feel like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, your book definitely opened the door to what has been an amazing journey since then. I've read tons since then.
Wow. You've posted some about Black Lives Matter and justice issues. What's your experience been as an immigrant here in America?
Oh man, such a tough question to answer. I am so new to channeling any kind of like activism energies. Coming from Jamaica, where racism is not a thing, we have something in Jamaica called colorism, but not racism. Well, not to my knowledge, not in my experience. I was so ignorant to what was happening here. And last year, 2020 is kind, even though I had been living here for almost 10 years, 2020 was what kind of opened my eyes to things that flew over my head that I didn't recognize as racism, or that in my ignorance I had previously thought like, oh, these people, some people just have like a chip on their shoulder. This is not an actual thing. And it was very humbling and very like shifting, violently shifting for me when I realized, oh my gosh, how could I have been so blind? So as an immigrant now in this setting, it's definitely one of those things where I'm new to it, and I acknowledge for sure my inadequacy in knowing just how to navigate it properly, or having the correct terminology to even speak about it from any place of true knowledge. So last year, I did spend a lot of time reading books that I think would help me gain a better understanding so that I can join the fight. Because now I do realize, which I didn't realize before, it's an important fight to join. It's a necessary fight to join. I don't have kids of my own, but I have nieces and nephews, and I'm also a nanny. So just thinking about that next generation, it's definitely been awakened in me that I need to join that fight, and I need to understand how to fight that fight, even though I am an immigrant and my formative years experiences have been different and probably haven't equipped me to join the fight right now. So, yeah. Hopefully that answers your question. I think I kind of went off on a tangent there, but hopefully that was an
No, that's
answer.
great. That's great. How do you find the acting life, going on auditions and such? How has that been for you?
It's really been great when it is that I can make time for it. So I know this is not a new thing to any actor. The balance is always, how do I pay bills while still showing up for auditions, having the flexibility with hours of whatever job I have that pays the bills until acting pays the bills. So I do have other side jobs, which unfortunately sometimes take up a lot of time, and I'll miss auditions or not even be able to look for projects to hop on because my time is spent making money for a living. But when I do make time for it, or I do have the time for it, it's been a beautiful journey. I went to New York Film Academy and did an acting course, a 10-week intensive acting course, and kind of just learned my style there. And I remember one of my teachers telling me, he's like, you definitely have the commercial look, like a print model, happy getting commercials kind of look. And that's definitely where I've had most of my success. I've done commercials for like Disney, and I did one for Bose speaker, and oh my gosh, it's a lot too much to think about now. I should have made a list, but that's where I've had most of my success. I've done short films also, which have won at various like Black film festivals too. So the journey has definitely been a lesson filled journey, not as successful on screen or to outsiders looking in, but as a person, I've definitely gotten all the lessons that I need from the journey in terms of how hard the journey is going to be, what you have to put in, how important it is to master yourself on the journey. So all of that, that's been very rewarding.
One of your short films had a very interesting premise. Is it called Mino?
Oh, Mino, yes, yes. Oh, you've done some research.
Yeah, of course. So tell me what that film's about and where we'll be able to see it, because I couldn't find it available anywhere yet.
Yes. So I think that film, one, I played a very small role in that film. I can hear one of my acting coaches go, there are no small actors, like no small roles, you know. But I played a very, very tiny role in that film, not a speaking role, nothing like that. And to answer your question, where you can find that film, I believe that the writer and producer of that film now has that film in certain film festival, in a film festival circuit. So it's not available for mass distribution yet. I think she's looking for a platform and some kind of financial support to get that film off the ground. But it is about a society filled with women who, oh man, I don't want to butcher the story. It's a society filled with women who have made it so that they don't reproduce men anymore on purpose because men have kind of destroyed everything. And now there's one woman who wants to birth a male child. And so it's kind of following that journey of what would happen in a situation like that.
Well, I actually had a very similar idea for a novel several years ago. That same premise, the title was going to be World Without Men. And, and
play with world without end, world without men. I like that.
Yeah. And the idea was that men have caused so much problems, so much violence, that eventually women would not only rule but reproduce without men and eliminate them. And I spent probably 2 months working on ideas for this, but it didn't come together as an actual work. But just that mainly the title stuck with me.
Well, with how that film was received, I'm pretty sure if you ever wanted to go back and look at your idea, it looks like it's a pretty popular topic or theme worthy of some exploration. And I believe it could go either way too, even though I don't really know what a world without women too would look like. But I mean, no, it sounds like something that is rich enough to have a little bit of fun with. And if not like a full book, it could be like a short story.
Yeah, it's definitely time for women leaders, I think. Like, look at what the women leaders around the world have done in response to the pandemic. They've had much more success.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. And it comes full circle to what we spoke about. It's just about balance. It's not about having one more than the other. I'm not asking for one more than the other, but it's just about creating that balance.
I'd like to talk about your poetry a bit. You said you only started writing poetry about 8 years ago or so?
Yes, well, it started a dedicated writing to it. I kind of fell in love with poetry around the time of, I guess, my first love, because he loved poetry. So I kind of dabbled in a little bit of poetry then. But yeah, not until about 8 or so years ago did I like consistently start to write poetry.
And I asked if you could pick out a couple, one or two of your poems to read. If I'm not gonna put you on the spot too much, if you'd be willing to read some, that would be great.
I am. That's a little bit of fear conquering for me, because I always get nervous whenever I have to read my poetry. Yeah. But since you asked, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Okay, so I picked out one that speaks to my Caribbean upbringing, I guess, or my island upbringing, and mixes it with what I feel my purpose in life is, to bring a little bit of joy to people. And this one was published. This is actually one of my first poems that was published in the Altadena Poetry Review anthology in 2016.
Great.
So this is one of my first poem, I think, that was published. So it's a point of pride for me. So this one, it's called It Ebbs and Flows on the Key of Dreams. Some days I am the key, and the restless souls tread to me on the tides of their rising salted seas, thumbing my third eye, stroking visions of their hopeful destinies. And some nights I am the bed, unmade, unknown, and underfed, present within the absence of foresight, treading beneath the layer of last light penetration, imitating waves of insight, and intimate with black magic through a blind sight. But mostly I am in between the cliff, the precipice, and the border of the soul-housing spleen, crumbling under the ebb and flow of my people's collective dreams, collecting the air from both hungry and satiated bellies, trying to sit upright, but bursting at the seams.
Wow. I love that.
Thank you very much.
When poetry can connect natural images like the cliff and the key and the sea, when those natural images are connected to emotions, I think that's really the essence of what poetry is.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I never think about or like dissect my poetry like that. So it's always such a blessing when somebody else like tells me what they get from it or what connections seemed powerful to them. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, okay. So I'll do this one here. This poem, I've given myself permission to change over time. I tend not to edit my poems. I want them to just reflect what it is I was feeling at that stage. But I wrote a poem a few years ago, and I've given myself permission to change the poem over time based on what words I now think suit better. So this one I read on my page a couple years ago, so it's going to sound different now because there's certain words that are changed now. And it is about change, which for me, that has been a bit of a journey to kind of change my mind, to give myself permission to change my mind as often as I want. I think we suffer a lot as people because we act as if change is not a part of our life, like things have to be permanent. And so this is kind of my poem to impermanence and my poem to change. A wife to change. If I'm to be honest, I do not feel entirely ready. I am not yet Hope's widow, but change doesn't care. He is on bended knee with soul-fixed stare, and for me, with no intention to leave without, he is here, breathing liquid space into all that is collapsed within and beyond repair, all that has been burdened by beauty, and all that has already dried up in despair. Pulling, his inhale was seeking and finding. Pushing, his exhale sought and found my ego, too guilty and too everywhere. And whether or not I think I have more give to expand to receive him wholly is irrelevant to him. For he comes shape-shifting, forcefully and essentially oiled, ring-bearing with his two wronged fists to make fruitful and right the universe of my barren and one loved life. And without knowing, I had been waiting for him. Door and desperate adjacent, I had been waiting for his coming. And that daybreak when I broke and he entered, in an act of worship and welcome, every black hole I housed handed over its walls, blurred its boundaries, encircled his blossoms and answered his calls. And without might of my own mind, I became light. And before my flesh surrendered to life's sunset, with him inside, not just as a part of life, but as life itself, I became wife.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for asking me to share.
Thanks for being brave. I can imagine that if someone asked me to read some poems, it would be tough.
Oh, wait, you write poetry?
Not much. Very rarely, very rarely.
You instantly sounded like you got nervous. No, not that much. Maybe we'll see your poetry show up on Twitter one day then.
I've mainly done comedy poetry. I've written a couple songs that are more poems. On my website, I have a music section. And when you click on music, you'll see the songs that I've written. So that's really my poetry.
Oh, I love that. I actually do gravitate towards songs more with that poetic feel. Like that's because I love lyrics of songs. So when you can mix the two, I'll definitely be checking that out.
I wrote them for a bluegrass singer here in Nashville. And she's recorded one of the songs where I wrote the lyrics and she writes the music. So she's recorded one that's on there, but the two that are my favorites, she hasn't yet recorded.
Oh, I cannot wait to hear. Country music is actually my favorite kind of music too, which is very weird for a Jamaican, but it's always, I think, again, it's the stories. I love stories and the vulnerability and so country music is my favorite kind of music. So, I can't wait to hear.
Well, you got to come visit us in Nashville then.
I've been to Nashville once there for work and I absolutely loved it. We went to some karaoke bar and again, it was just country music and the energy was just amazing. No, thank you for that invitation. I'm definitely I'm gonna take you up on that.
Great, that'd be amazing. It's definitely surprising that you took up writing late in life because you've developed so much in just a few years with it.
Yes, yes. Oh, thank you so very much. I definitely endeavor to be like you. When I reached out to you, I'm pretty sure I mentioned about writing a book also. Because again, reading your book had just inspired me to go that route. It's 10 years. I have not finished the book, but it's definitely still in the working and I'm enjoying the process. I've decided I can't let it stress me out. I can't let the deadlines necessarily stress me out or kind of rush the magic. I am more about enjoying the process of it. And I absolutely do enjoy writing and I want to do more of it. I'm starting up my blog again. I used to have a blog called goldenhitchhiker.com and I stopped writing on it again because I just felt overwhelmed with the writing and with writing on a deadline and probably just put myself under more stress than I needed to with that, thinking I needed to say everything all at once. So now I realize I can kind of just pull back and kind of just have continuing conversations and give myself permission to speak in draft also and realize not everything has to be perfect. So I'm going to start writing again. Thank you for that encouragement.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes from a woman named Alice Hubbard. She said, "The world doesn't really need what you write, but you desperately need it."
Yes.
So I think we're the main people who benefit from our writing.
Yes.
So that's why it's so important to enjoy the process.
Yes, actually, I really like that. I've never even thought about it that way before, but that definitely just, wow, that just shifted because I do feel the difference in myself when I write. And so it's me that needs it. And maybe with the clarity that I get from it, then I can be of more service. But I need to just sit down and write. Oh, thank you so much. I love that perspective. Thank you.
Great.
Wow.
Now, how about the feature film you mentioned you had an idea for? Is that separate from the writing you were just speaking of, or?
It is separate from that. And this has been probably about 2 or 3 years that I've thought about that. It's a bit of a coming of age story and also like an immigrant story of how to navigate your new environment and how to get a deeper understanding of the new culture that you're in. So that's what the feature film is about. It's not my story, but it's about a Jamaican woman who moves to the US and has experiences she never thought she would have. She married interracially and now is wondering like what that looks like, or she's having different anxiety than her husband is having while they're expecting like a mixed race child. So it's about that particular journey. So not a story of my own, but definitely one I think that the events of the past year has made even richer. So I'm working on that there.
Great. Well, I wish you the best of success with that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That will be my debut as actor and writer of my own work. So
Great. Do you plan to do more with singing? I know you've posted a few videos in past years of covering songs you've sang.
Yes, I do. I think singing just never leaves me. I used to sing a lot better, I lost my voice maybe 4 years ago, and that was kind of like a wake-up call for me. I was like, well, you weren't using it, Lisa, so you lost it. And it's taking its time to kind of come back to me now. I don't really know what the universe has in store with me and singing. I know I do it a lot in anything that I create. I'm either quoting a song in something that I write, or if I'm doing a vlog, I'll kind of trail off into a song if I say something that reminds me of a song. So I know music will definitely, or singing will always be heavily involved in my creativity. But in terms of having a definite goal as to what doors I want it to open, I don't have one yet. I enjoy doing it. And when my voice is acting right, I tend to belt out a bit on my Instagram.
Yeah, I'm an amateur singer myself, and I find when people talking about raise your vibration, singing is the one thing that raises my vibration, literally.
Yes, exactly.
And I enjoy just singing alone at home, Frank Sinatra songs mainly.
Oh, Frank, yes. Frank Sinatra, you're belting out that I did it my way. Yes, no, it is one of those things that it's my go-to. I'm always singing wherever I am. If I'm comfortable enough around people, I'll just start singing too. Like it is a part of raising my vibration and a very present daily therapy for me, I guess.
Who are your main role models? You mentioned, is it Felicia Rashad earlier?
Yes.
Who are some other people you look up to for inspiration?
Oh man. Oh, I love this question. So yes, Felicia Rashad for the acting energies that I want to like put out into the universe. Because I write poetry and also love writing too, there's definitely Maya Angelou and Toni Morrison, two of my faves with their writing and their poetry and just their self-expression through the written word. I love that. My goal is, I do have a goal to do a bit of a talk show. So I love Oprah. I absolutely love Oprah. I think with me and how I want to bring light into the world and to people, Oprah is definitely one of those for me. Let's see, I don't want to forget anyone. Trevor Noah. I absolutely, I love Trevor Noah. I'm not funny, so nothing I do will be like along the lines of Trevor Noah. But yeah, that's a talk show too. Informative and kind of like making light of the serious issues in a way that you can digest them, you know?
My wife and I saw Trevor Noah here in Nashville a few years ago. It was great.
No, like saw him live?
Yeah.
Oh, you're living my dream. Yes, I absolutely adore his work ethic and how he moves in the world, the energies that he puts out in the world. So that's definitely a role model of mine. Who else? Issa Rae. I can't, Issa Rae, I absolutely love. That's some serious Black girl magic, and just like go after what you want and take other people with you. That's her way of doing things. And Ava DuVernay. So I think that's a pretty comprehensive list, and I think that kind of includes all the energies that I want to put out there too, or all the creative channels that I want to explore.
Great. Were you raised with a particular religious outlook in Jamaica?
Yes.
And has that changed over time? That's the whole question.
So yes, Jamaica is mostly Christian, and then you have the different denominations under there. For the longest time, I thought I grew up Baptist, but my mom said no, I'm Gospel Assembly. Is that what it is? If that's a denomination, but for the longest time I thought it was Baptist. So yes, I definitely have a Christian outlook. As I've gotten older, it's not that it has changed, but what I've incorporated now is the spiritual aspect of it, of my life. And I blend the two there. So I have the spiritual aspect. So I'll Buddhism, I read up a lot on the Tao, Rumi, things like that. So at first I tried to find all my answers through Christianity, but I realized that I got to find the words for this, because it's not that Christianity is itself lacking. I want to say that probably my knowledge of it is lacking. And so the spiritual components that I allow will fill that gap.
It's definitely possible to be raised Christian like I was, but have no spiritual life really, or have not had a spiritual experience. And those can, for me, it came from other places, like whether walking in nature or reading books like the Tao Te Ching, like you mentioned, and the Stoic philosophers. So yeah, for me too, I found spirituality outside of Christianity after I was older.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's important. I think maybe I don't want to generalize and be like unfair to my island, but I think that those things weren't explored. And they may have even been looked down upon, as in like, you don't need anything else. All you need is Jesus, But I found that there were answers at times that I needed where I wasn't able to extract the lesson from the scriptures as readily or as easily as I could have extracted it from something else. And I think that's what makes it necessary, because it's not so much, for me, it's not so much who is the messenger all the time, but just that I receive the message, and it doesn't matter where it comes from. As long as I receive the message, then I think they kind of complement each other. So
there's even a Bible verse that says the letter of the law kills, but the spirit gives life. I think when you grow up in a religion, it's easy to miss the spirit because you're constantly being taught the letter.
Yes. I'm making notes. I have a little section here. You have given me so much right now, the letter of the law. Yes, I will look up on that. But yeah, it is true. I think I did an injustice to myself, which is probably why there were times I strayed away from Christianity, not in any major way, but it wasn't a part of like my daily go-to like how it is now. And it is because I was looking for that deeper connection with spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some of your poetry is very sensual and romantic. What do you think of there's often a tension or a contrast between sensuality and spirituality. What would you say about that?
Oh, sensuality and spirituality. Oh, giving me a lot to think about here.
If it's too hard to think of it off the top of your head, we can cut this part out.
No. No, I'm up for the challenge. I think they both speak to a higher vibrational self. And I think why people tend to want to to separate them is because a lot of people look at sensuality and sexuality as like dirty or not pure energies or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that they are very much intertwined. I don't know if I have an answer for you, but something came to mind as soon as you said that, and it's because I was writing a blog about it. So I'll tell you what came to mind. There is a gospel song that I absolutely love that feels very sensual to me, and I don't know how to explain it. And when I first heard it, there is that voice in your head that goes, no, you shouldn't mix those two. But I go, why shouldn't I mix those two? They're both higher forms of my being, and nothing is dirty or nothing is wrong. The line goes, love laid its breath against my chest. My skin was thick, but you breathed down all my walls. And I think that, to me, that's sensual. That can speak to a love between two partners, but it also speaks to my love with the Creator, how He breathed down all my walls when my skin was like so thick. And that's what a partner is supposed to do too, peel back those layers to get to the core of you. So I know that doesn't answer it, but that's definitely what came to mind when you asked, with that combination of sensuality and spirituality. And I think they're very much interlinked.
Yeah, that's great. And when you were talking about the idea of certain things being dirty, it reminded me, of course, that's where my title, The Dirty Parts of the Bible, comes from.
Yes.
referencing the Song of Solomon and the main character's shock when he comes across this book in the Bible
that talks about breasts.
Right. So then one of the themes in the book, or the development, is uniting sexuality with higher ideals, and discovering that the dirty parts of the Bible are not dirty after all.
Exactly. And I think that's definitely what drew me to your book too, because I grew up pretty like conservative and not wanting to question certain things of like the Bible, or not even wanting to like think about that, like the dirty parts of the Bible. But again, I had started on that journey around that time of like, just think outside the box, think for yourself, a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with coming to a different conclusion, on an issue. And your book definitely blew open the waters for that, my irreverent reading, which I still do, like, to this day, do a little bit of like, and it's not even like it's irreverent. Maybe I'm using the word incorrectly, but there's this book it's a curse word. I won't say it. It's un-F yourself. And because I don't curse, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't read it. But I go, no, I should. There's nothing wrong. It's just a word, and I'm sure I can get some like knowledge from it.
Right.
So to this day, I still do that like irreverent reading of things that maybe words I don't use in my own like life.
Right. Well, my podcast title is Living from the Soul. What does the word soul mean to you? What does that bring to mind?
Soul. It's that immortal part of my being that transcends time, transcends space, that needs nothing, that's already full on its own. And I just need to, it's that part of yourself that you get to by peeling away the layers, like it's that fullness within you, that thing within you that lacks nothing. And you kind of just need to peel away the layers of your being to get there rather than to find it. It's already, within you.
It's never lost. People
Yes.
talk about lost souls, but it can never be lost.
Yes, I agree. It can't be lost. I probably just have too many layers there to get to it. And so I just need to do some peeling away.
Great. Well, it's been so wonderful talking with you. You're a radiant person. And
thank you.
Yeah, it's just been a joy.
Oh, it definitely has been too. I feel so honored. Thank you so very much for asking me to be on your show and having me express myself creatively. And yes, you too were a joy to speak to, a beacon of light. I have so many notes here. So you definitely shed a lot of light, and I know this will not be our last conversation. I have plans to interview you too when I get my things off the ground. So
that would be great.
Yes.
That would be great. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Living from the Soul. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review. This is an ad-free podcast supported by my books, which are available at samtorode.com. The theme music is by Gideon Torode.